All right, hey everyone. Hold on a second. Let me adjust my microphone. I forgot to put the banner up here. Just give me a moment. I got to put that up first, and then we'll get this thing started. All right, good to see everyone here. Hold on. There we go. All right, so hey, let me adjust my microphone. All right, you guys should be hearing me okay. All right, let's get this thing started. So hey, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me for my stream. This is Mark P Markets. And in this stream, for those that are new to this, I'm going to be covering Bitcoin. We're going to look at it we're going to look at the daily time frame here in this stream. We're going to look for potential scenarios. We're going to basically lay out expectations for the coming week. Okay, that's the whole point of these streams. And then I'm going to answer your questions. Of course, before that, I'm going to talk about the economic calendar very quickly. So if you have a question about a stock or an altcoin, please share it in the channel now. Hey, TradingView people, cool. How you doing, Joel? Good to see you. Steve, thanks for joining me. I got my YouTube people here. So now would be a good time to start putting your questions in the channel, okay? So that by the time I get to that part of the stream, I can answer them. Also, this stream is going to be about an hour long. I'm not going to go over that. So if I miss your question, I apologize. Okay. Try asking again, or just come back next week. I do these every Monday. All right. So let's get started. This is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. Okay. Now, got that over with. Let's get into what's going on here. Oh yeah. By the way, if you want to share what city or what country you are from, that's always a fun fact. And one other thing before I begin, I just have to mention real quick that these streams are brought to you by 8Cap Partners. Okay. They are an Australian broker, Forex and CFD broker. They are regulated in Australia, and they offer a nice variety of instruments to trade. They have two they have a commission-based model. They also have a standard spread-based model. So you can check that out. They recently integrated their feed into TradingView. So you can actually, instead of having to use MetaTrader, you can actually trade through TradingView using the 8Cap feed, okay, which is a very nice feature because MetaTrader charts aren't exactly the most flexible, okay? So anyway, this is for non-US. This is best for non-US. They don't accept US customers, okay, just so you know. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Okay, first things first. And I see people putting in your questions, so great job. Thanks for putting your questions in. Let's talk about this here. So if you read my article yesterday on TradingView, I don't know how well received my articles have been recently. I don't think people like reality. I think people are more interested in lies. They want to hear hope, and they want to hear that Bitcoin's going to go to 500,000, and there's very little chance of something like that happening. Okay, you have to look at probabilities in this game, not what people think. I keep telling you, trust the price, not people. You actually, your own opinion can be your own, having an opinion can be your own worst enemy in this game, because people think, well, you know, this and that and this and that. Meanwhile, you may not be aligned with what the market thinks, okay? And the market is always right. So you have to look at this from a factual point of view. And I was pointing this out earlier with Bill, and I had another guy watching. The broader price structure is really what's in play here. And all I see are lower high over here. Okay. We got another lower high over here at 20.5. Where there are lower highs, lower lows are likely to follow. It doesn't guarantee that they will, but they are favored. Okay. On top of structure being generally bearish, we have a economic environment that's generally bearish. So there's a lot of factors favoring a break of the 18.5 support. All right, now, will we get that break this week? I don't know. I forgot to mention the economic calendar, so now would be a good time to mention it very quickly. We have a couple of reports that you should pay attention to this week. The first one is the FOMC meeting minutes that comes out on Wednesday, which is what, the 12th, I believe. That usually comes out at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you're aware of that, even though it's the meeting minutes. If there are any surprises or the market perhaps forgot to price something in, you can see a reaction across the board. Okay, we've seen that. I remember about a month ago or two, there was a reaction off the FOMC meeting minutes. Historically, no one really cares because the information is known. But these days, because everything is so sensitive around the Federal Reserve, a surprise can come out of there. So just keep that in mind. Also on Thursday, we have the CPI report, I believe. That's an inflationary tool, whatever, that I believe the Fed looks at very closely. So that number, the previous CPI that we had the month before, was problematic for the market because it's basically reflecting higher levels of inflation than people were expecting. Okay, so the point is you can't predict the report, but if there are any surprises to the higher inflationary side, could be another negative catalyst for the market. So keep that in mind. Again, you're not trying to trade around that. You're trying to manage risk. And then on Friday, we have the, retail sales, I believe, for US. So that is not as important as like the CPI, but still it's an important, keep it in mind. I believe that comes out around 10:30, something like that. Don't just double check on those times because I don't pay much attention to like retail sales, but I believe that's what's coming out. And I think there's like the Michigan consumer sentiment, whatever, but that's not as important as some of these other things. Okay. So that's generally the economic environment. These reports that I just mentioned can act as a potential catalyst to push price toward this 18.5 area. Now, you also have to keep in mind that Bitcoin is correlated to the S&P right now. It may not be one-to-one, but S&P sitting on lows, I don't see Bitcoin rallying, okay? Bitcoin just seems to be getting weaker slowly inside of this structure. Now, keep in mind, this rectangle that I drew on the chart here, it basically just represents a consolidation area. So anything that occurs inside of this rectangle is pretty much meaningless. So anyone that's making a big deal out of it, I hope you can see through that now, because there's nothing going on here and there's really nothing worth mentioning. Unless you're on the day trade time frame, then there's plenty of price action to work with here. But if you're on the swing trade time frame, there's nothing here except overlap, okay, and lower highs. So what do you do? So as far as setups go, as the week unfolds, I mean, if a bearish continuation pattern shows up in this area, which I mean can very well show up, this is a tough spot to be taking a new swing trade. It's right at the midpoint of the zone. Prices are highly random here. So it's, if the signal shows up, yeah, you can work with that, but it's extremely aggressive, okay? Because things can go wrong very quickly. It's highly random. You're better off if you're looking for a long, the 18.5 range low, okay, support. If it acts as a support again, perhaps that can be worth a swing trade working its way back up toward the midpoint of the range. That's all you would be looking for, okay? Maybe the upper area of the range, but don't expect that you got the bottom of Bitcoin, right? Expectations need to be very reasonable in this environment, and they're not favorable on the bullish side. So you're better off having limited expectations. So if you take a swing trade long off of this low, don't expect much. Maybe 1,000 points, 1,500 points over a few days, something like that is within reason. Somewhere in this zone is where you'd be looking to get out. Okay, not up here. Although anything is possible, the environment doesn't favor dramatic bullish movements. It favors bearish movements. So let's talk about the bearish side. If Bitcoin finds some kind of support, maybe it finds it somewhere around here somewhere, okay? There's no way to know exactly. And it tries to bounce, okay? If you go for that long, again, I said it's highly risky. Things can turn and change very quickly with all this news coming out. The short area, the place to be looking for shorts would be here, somewhere near that range high. So what is that? Near like the mid to high 19s, maybe low 20s, all right? It can even break through a bit and give you a sell signal up here somewhere. So those are the zones that you're looking for. If you're looking for short setups, those are the places you wait for. Those areas are the high probability turning points, not here on the low. People always, they grasp at the obvious. That's a sign of a novice, of a beginner. They grasp at the obvious, and the obvious here is to go short now, but that's a bad location. You have to recognize the probability of the location, which is not clear. It's not, excuse me, it's not crystal clear on the chart. It's not something you're going to see. So you have to recognize and get that information from other pieces or other puzzle pieces from the chart, right? And that's what I teach my people to do. Anyway, All right, so that's pretty much Bitcoin. Those are the levels that I would be looking for any type of action on this swing trade time frame. Of course, if you're a day trader, though, that's another game. Okay, I'm not even addressing that here. Let me know if you have any questions about Bitcoin. I'd like to move on now and start answering your questions because again, I have about an hour. So the next 50 minutes, I would like to spend answering your questions. Okay, let me know if you have any questions about Bitcoin. Let me see what we got here. Let me say hello to some people. Okay, hold on. Let me just refresh this over here and see what's going on over here on TradingView. TradingView people. Okay, I got some people watching me. By the way, over on TradingView, if you can do me a favor, press the boost button or something and let TradingView know that you like my content. Also, if you don't see me or whatever, you only hear me, make sure you refresh the browser because sometimes the browser just doesn't, I don't know what the story is with that, but that refreshing the browser usually solves the problem. Okay, so let me start answering some questions here. All right, first things first. Hey, Kai. All right, I'm good. STNE, it's a stock. Okay, let's take a look. All right. So again, people, you can ask me about stocks. You can ask me about altcoins, whatever you want. All right, and we're going to go over it. So STNE. All right, let's see what the story is here. First thing I'm checking is a weekly chart. Well, that's an interesting chart, Kai. Very interesting. So look at this range. Look at this consolidation. That's, consolidations, people don't like them, but they're actually good trade opportunities because they are a little more predictable, I guess you could say, compared to the noise that you get in a trend. I mean, you have some pretty well-defined levels here. You are at a resistance, right? Clearly. And the general structure on this thing is bearish, right? This is a lower high resistance area. So if you're thinking short, that would make sense here. All right, now let's take a look at the smaller time frame. I don't know what they do, but that doesn't really matter for a swing trade. So this current situation, now look at this. Right? It gave you a bearish pin bar off the range high, gave you another bearish pin bar, right? And now we're getting this strange candle, which is like a bullish pin bar, but it's at a high location. So this can be tricky. That can turn into a higher low. Now the market is still open, right? There's about another 40 minutes while the market is still open. This can turn into a higher low. But you do have a sell signal that's in play here. So if you're short something like this, obviously you're going to have to use this area up here to define your risk. And you don't want to see a conflicting signal develop here. You don't want to see like an outside bar or some green candles, because when a resistance is rejected, it should move pretty quickly over the next day or so. This is not quick, all right? There's a lot of hesitation here. Does that make sense? So the short side is the side that I would work with on this. I mean, I wouldn't go with the long side, but doesn't mean it won't fake out first and then give you another short up here. All right. Now, it's also possible that if this higher low establishes itself and it breaks out, that would be a new piece of information. Okay. And maybe this thing is breaking out to the bullish side and trying to establish a bullish structure. It's too early to say that here. Okay. So you can only say that when if it can get all the way up here and start closing strong. I mean, it would need the market also to support it for something like that. Again, I don't know what they do. With the S&P, we have to look at the S&P chart, but with the S&P and NASDAQ flirting with their lows and the bond market still, the bond prices flirting with their lows, I wouldn't say this has a whole lot of potential on the long side. Okay. Even if it breaks out temporarily. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Hey, Bill, always good to see you. Bill may not even have electricity and somehow he finds his way in here. Okay, no internet, no electricity, and Bill is still online. All right, let me see what else we got here. Okay, hey Han, would love to hear your view on XRP and on silver. Okay, so I'm going to go over XRP first. Okay, and then if I have time, I'll go over silver. So XRP USD. Now, so this one has been acting unusual, right? Considering what Bitcoin's been doing. Now, of course, there's been some news on this thing, which we talked about over the previous couple of weeks, some SEC news, which wasn't particularly favorable or whatever from what I understand from you guys. I don't pay any attention to the news. But the thing is, you are at a resistance in XRP. So anyone that's hyping this thing, this could easily be hype. Also, I can see a nice clean Elliott wave pattern here too, right? 1, This is 2. 2 never went below the bottom of 1. This is 3, right? You have this 4 situation, and this is 5, okay? This right here is 5. If that's the case, and you have 5 waves that are in play, this is a really bad time to be buying it, because the next broader movement is likely to be a corrective wave, corrective of the broader impulse structure, which is, this low to basically, well, wave 5 hasn't made a new high. This is in fact, this is still, we can still call this the first, maybe this is part of wave 5, but wave 5 needs to make the higher high to confirm it as wave 5. If it can't make the higher high, then it's either stuck in a wave 4, or it could be basically like a failed wave 5, which can happen. But Elliott wave is highly subjective, right? I'm not going to tell you about that to make trades off of that. You're better off focusing on levels. But the point is, I remember talking about this a couple of weeks ago and talking about the wave 4 to wave 5 situation. If you hadn't gotten long somewhere around there, right, the wave 5 would have made sense. If anything, the wave count would have told you that there was one more potential leg in this thing, right? If anything. So how is that helpful if you don't take the long? Well, at least you know not to go short, okay? So anyway, the point is this. It's trying to form this double top. This is a strange spot, okay? It's a possible double top. It's trying to develop some selling activity, but this is too early. It's an inside bar. In order for this to generate a sell signal, this inside bar low needs to be taken out, which is what, 51 cents. So if the inside bar high is taken out instead, it may work its way up into this zone, okay? And that would be potentially the wave 5 completion before the next broader corrective wave. I mean, that's typically how you would form your expectation. Don't think that XRP is going to go straight to $1 or something like that, okay? That would be unrealistic. When you can count 5 waves clearly on a chart, chances are the move is over, okay? That's even though wave 5 can extend, you have to look at the probability, not what you see. All right, so anyway, as far as this goes, so I wouldn't be looking for longs here. I mean, if you're going to day trade, that's one thing, but I mean, who day trades this thing? I would not be looking for longs. The short is still going to be very risky until you get into the fake out zone way up here, right? That would be a much more sensible short if you're going to take that aggressive position. You're still against this recent momentum, all right? If it starts to pull back, don't be looking for longs until it starts testing, what is this, the mid to higher 47 area, like 47s, 46s, 45s. That's where you're looking, if anything, okay? If anything, as far as swing trades go. If it breaks below that, it's probably in a broader wave too. You want to stay away from it at that point in terms of longs, especially since you have Bitcoin working against this thing. Okay, I don't know how far this thing's going to go with the whole world basically selling off. All right, anyway, thank you for asking about XRP. I'll cover silver after. I'll come back to it. Remind me again, all right? I want to get through some other questions here. Hey, Alex, good to see you. Got my Romanians. Okay, Will Reese from London or Australia? I know I have a couple of Will Reeses. I think I'm going to guess London because Australia is a strange time right now, right? I guess it depends where you are in Australia. All right, cool. Let me see what's going on here on the other one. So Chicago, I got Dubai, of course. Thanks for coming, you guys. Hey, Kaiser, how are you? From Canada. I remember seeing you in the channel there in the community. Cool, good to see you. Thanks for listening. I've been swinging XLE for a while with some success. Jumped out today, okay? What is the next entry point in your opinion on XLE? Let's take a look. So I remember you asking about this one, XLE. I guess you were long this thing? I mean, this is the energy sector, right, for the S&P, and you jumped out. Now, look at this thing. I mean, on the weekly chart, what you have here is, first of all, a consolidation. This is basically going back to the wave count. The reason why I'm bringing up Elliott waves is because the wave count is crystal clear here. Otherwise, I usually don't bring it up, right? This is wave 1, this is wave 2, 3, and you are now in a 4. This is a wave 4, this consolidation. So this can test the wave 4 bottom again. It's possible. So if you exited that, okay. If you're looking for another place to get back in, wait for that range low. I mean, give it a chance to test that low, especially with the dollar doing what it's doing. Oil is very geopolitical, and oil can shrug off the dollar at times if there's other more important news, like I believe what they were cutting oil production or something like that a week ago they had mentioned. So that's enough to shrug off the dollar. But the dollar's going higher. It doesn't matter, right? Oil is driven by some very specific factors, and you have to keep that in mind. So if you exited this, exited along, that's a nice job. You exited near the range high. So to get back in, you have this zone right here, okay? You have a gap over here. Any test of this area, what is that? 76.5 all the way to 69. That's a decent little range right there. Any test of that area followed by a buy signal could be the next area for a swing trade long. I mean, that's where I'd be looking for it. There's no need to feel like you're missing out on anything because, yeah, you may get a higher low somewhere before that, but there's so much that can go wrong with this thing, right? So you're better off waiting for a high probability level. You may not get that level, all right? And if the market forms a higher low somewhere along the line, you'll see it. And if a continuation pattern or some kind of buy signal develops, it's going to be riskier because you're near resistance, but that's going to be up to you. For example, look, we had a situation like that back here, higher low, okay, look for long, right? You can basically make an argument for a long here. And as you can see, it wasn't good for very much, okay? It formed another lower high. So what do you do in those situations? Can you even, do you know that this is going to come? You don't know. So you have to be prepared for the trade turning the wrong way or giving you a conflicting signal, and you have to adjust and get out. That's the only way to get around something like that. You can't just sit there and say, well, I thought it was going to go to, whatever, and it's turning, but I'm going to hold it because I have hope. And then you get stuck in this thing, okay? So not you, but you know what I'm saying. Right? That's the general, like the herd mentality thought process. All right, anyway, thanks for asking about XLE. I hope you find that helpful. All right, let me move along here. Okay, I'm just jumping across, just trying to catch up on these chats. Okay, hold on. All right, so can you take a look at NIO? It's an area where we saw heavy buying. Okay, NIO, I guess you're talking about NIO, the car, the EV stock, right? I would imagine. All right, let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look here at the weekly. Yes, I see what you're saying. Well, I know Tesla got beat up pretty recently, right? We were looking at that chart, not too long ago. And of course, when the leader of the industry gets hammered, the smaller companies typically get hammered too. Look at that. It's an old trade that we had from way back. So yeah, you're okay. So you're certainly in a buying area. Look at the weekly pin bar from a few months back there. But this, you can't step in front of this. First of all, today is Monday, okay? And the thing is red today, right, by 49 cents. So it depends now, for one, if you're interested in investing, right, that's one thing, because you're certainly at an attractive level, but there's no reason to buy right now. There's no signal. You're just stepping in front of bearish momentum. So if you're interested as a swing trade, there's absolutely nothing to do. All you do, you do have an area of interest. You do have a pretty significant support level, all right? But that's all you have. People think that that's enough. It's not enough. You do need to look at other things, okay? Like the environment, okay? And when I say like the environment, this is what I mean, all right? No one's asked me about this yet, but that's the bond market, okay? This is the bond prices, and yields are inverse to this. Now, some people are going to argue, but there's a bullish pin bar there. It's a double bottom. But the bond market, this means nothing to the bond market. It will take so long for this thing to turn itself around and to do anything significant economically that, you have to look at this and say, well, based on this, things are generally bearish, right? So EV makers are they usually borrow a lot of money. And as the price of money becomes more expensive, these EV makers are going to have a hard time. Okay, so I'm not too surprised to see NIO in the toilet there. You're probably going to see other car makers in the same situation. As money becomes more expensive, it's going to take quite some time. Keep in mind, EV makers are highly speculative assets. Anything that's highly speculative in a rising rate environment is going to suffer. Okay, so just keep that in mind in terms of expectations. So yes, you have a good price, but you don't have a supportive environment. All right, so I hope that helps. Let me jump over to the other chat here. Let's see what we have. So SQQQ. All right, so SQQQ is the Ultra Pro short ETF, right? So this is basically going to be the inverse of the NASDAQ. Now, in these, someone asked me about this a week before as well. When you look at these charts, this is a derivative chart, right? It's derivative of the QQQ. You're better off making your decisions not on this chart, but on the parent chart. You know, something like this, right? This is the NASDAQ 100. This is the CFD, which is basically, you know, like a reflection of the futures. And this is what you should be making your decisions on, not the SQQQ chart, because that chart depends on this chart. Okay, so any signal that shows up on that chart is going to be kind of meaningless, right? Because this is the main chart. So here, let's talk about the NASDAQ 100. This is something I follow pretty closely. So you have it's a very similar situation to the bond market. Okay, it's sitting on its lows. This thing, today it's minus 79 points, which is not huge for this thing. It's delivering a pin bar, right? And we only have 30 minutes before this thing closes. So it's trying to print a pin bar, but this thing can easily close on its low. So there's no buy signal here yet. The appearance of a pin bar, even if it closes this way, doesn't guarantee you're going to have buying. Now, you're going to have a lot of big mouths calling double bottom and blah, 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 blah. But you saw some of those reports. We have the CPI report coming out on Thursday that can easily push this thing lower if it comes out the wrong way. Okay, easily. So you have to keep that in mind. It's too early to make any judgments on that. So as far as your SQQQ, if this thing goes higher, obviously that thing is going to pull back because it's the ultra pro short or whatever. Pro shares ultra short. So it's the inverse of this, right? So it looks strong while this thing is pushing lows. Keep in mind, this is a high probability reversal zone that we're in. So if this thing squeezes on any good reports, that thing is going to pull back. So taking any positions right now is highly aggressive. It might work, but you're really flipping a coin, all right? Because it can go either way, all right? It's going to be very binary, and you have to be aware of that. You know, so the thing to do here, for one, there's nothing to do at the moment as far as swing trades go. Secondly, if you're looking for the setup, what you want to see is an inside bar develop and the low taken out, right? That would give at least give you a continuation sell signal if you wait for that. It's still highly risky because of the location, but at least you have some kind of setup and some point of reference to measure your risk from. Otherwise, I would be looking for maybe some sort of a rally, right? Some sort of bounce or squeeze back into this zone here. And that would be the place to be looking for shorts on the NASDAQ or longs on the SQQQ if you get the sell signal. Again, this is all dependent on the sell signal, on the setup, okay? People like to just jump in front because things look right or feel right. You cannot make decisions like that, all right? That's why people get into so many problems. In fact, when I send out trade ideas, I don't even say, oh, okay, this is enough. And then I say, okay, get in here. I put a buy stop, okay? And a lot of people are confused by the buy stop. What is a buy stop? You let the market work to get you in, okay? I don't sit there. I don't place manual orders. The market has to get itself in. The market has to do the work, not me. My goal is to minimize myself as much as possible from the action, right? From the trade idea. So keep that in mind, all right? So just because something may look a certain way doesn't mean it won't change over the next 15 minutes or 30 minutes. You can't make those judgments. Let the market do the work. All right, so good question on that, on SQQQ. All right, let me move along here. I want to try to answer as many questions as possible. So please take a look at ALB. All right, let's see. What is that, Daniel? Hey, good to see you. ALB. ALB, is that a stock? All right. So what is their story? Let's start with the weekly chart. So, you know, as you can see, as a swing trader, I'm not really too interested in the fundamentals. I mean, it does kind of help to know what industry they're in, because the first thing I think of is, well, how is interest rates going to affect them? You know, it's the first thing that I think of, because if it's going to be, you know, if rising rates are bad for them, then any kind of bullishness right away, I write off as limited. Okay. Now, this is a pretty decent looking chart, considering we've had rising rates for quite some time. I mean, this chart's, you know, fooling around on its highs. So, I mean, that's interesting. So I have to give it that it's generally strong. Now, this is a weekly chart. You do have a resistance where it is right now. So now let's go back to the daily chart. Okay. Now in this area, this, as you can see, this blue line represents resistance. You have a range, okay? You have this little higher low situation, and it's basically consolidating. It's been consolidating since what, I guess a month now. So you're playing something that's generally strong here. But here's the thing. So you right now, you have a buy signal. You can argue that there is a buy signal. You have a bullish pin bar here, but you're right at the midpoint of this. So this can fool around a bit. As we can see, the NASDAQ is fooling around on its lows. We have some important news coming out this week. If the NASDAQ pushes lower, this is vulnerable to test its low, right? You have to watch out for that because, I mean, when the major index gets hammered, you know, a lot of times they can basically, stocks have a tendency to follow. Not all stocks, and the correlation is not all the same, but, you know, if the entire world is selling off, you want to be careful. You don't want to be stuck in something, you know, just because it looked good, you know, a couple of days earlier, and then out of nowhere, it starts getting affected, right? So tough spot for the long. If you're aggressive, okay, that's one thing, but this would be the better area, right? If you're looking for a long on something like this, look for the range low, all right, which is around the, what is that, 258, so around 250 area, somewhere around there. This thing right now is at 277, so it can pull back a good 20 points, all right, and then look for the setup there. That would be a more ideal area. Otherwise, you're waiting for this thing to break out, right, and then pull back there. But keep in mind, you know, you have this resistance up in here, which is going to be around 288. So the closer you buy to that, or worse, if you buy right into it, keep in mind, you're buying into a very vulnerable area. If you do that because you like breakouts, that's okay. Make sure you babysit it though, because if it gives you the wrong signal right after, like kind of like this, goes for the higher high, and you're like, yeah, all right, making the higher high, it's breaking out. And then next candle looks like this, you got problems, okay? Because that's not what the next candle should look like. So keep that in mind. When you go for those aggressive trades, you really have to be on top of them. If you're like nonchalant, or, you know, you like to just let you know, give the market a chance and blah, 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 you're doing it at the wrong prices at that point, okay? You want to do that when probability is more in your favor, not against you. So keep that in mind. But generally, I mean, I would make the arguments on the bullish side of this thing until it proves otherwise. And otherwise means it takes out this support, okay, to basically this 249 low, right? If it takes out that support, then I would hold off on bullish ideas, okay, until it can give some kind of new reason, right? Perhaps a new double bottom or something at some kind of predefined support level. All right, good question. Let's move along here. Again, if I miss your question, I apologize. So you can ask me again. You are bullish long Bitcoin long term. Where would you start scaling in? That's a good question, Joel. So I mean, over the long term, sure. I believe Bitcoin has more upside potential. We're talking, you know, multi-year. Where would I start accumulating inventory? Well, that's, you know, that's not an, it's going to depend on a few things, but to keep it simple, let's go to the weekly chart. Okay, so this is the weekly Bitcoin. You have to realize current prices aren't a bad area to accumulate some inventory right now. Like I always say, it's never a bad time to accumulate some inventory. The question is how much inventory. So because of this situation, I would not be aggressively accumulating. Like right now, you know, let's assume you have a $10,000 account and you want to allocate all of that money to Bitcoin, okay? Or let's say you have a $100,000 account and 10% of that is going to go toward Bitcoin, which is $10,000. So in a situation like that, I mean, maybe 0.5% at a time, you know, so once a month, 0.5%, it's a very small amount. So because if Bitcoin breaks, you know, this thing, can you realize, while the probability may be low that this thing goes to 10K, it's still a possibility, okay, over the next few months until we see this bond market come off, right? And it needs to stop pushing rates higher. It's only putting more pressure on this thing, right, with the strong dollar. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see this thing get cut in half again, right? I wouldn't be surprised to see it at 10K. So if that's the case, there's no reason to load up on inventory right now. Absolutely no reason. So you can load small, okay? And if this thing goes to 15K, you know, whatever. If you're buying a small amount each month, a very small amount, As it pulls back, you're just going to allocate your money at better and better prices. Okay. And at some point it will turn. But where will that point be? No one knows. Although many claim to know, the turning point, I believe, will come when the bond market shows it first. And the bond market may show it for quite some time before Bitcoin reacts. Okay. Just like we saw when the bond market turned off of its peak. Okay. It was about 5 months before everything else recognized that. Okay. So there'll be plenty of opportunity. There's no rush. You want to start accumulating inventory? Small. Keep just account for, hey, this thing can go to 10K. Do you want to be stuck with all $10,000 at 20K and watch it go to, watch this thing go to 10K? Of course not. But if you're buying $100 at a time, you're not going to feel any pain. Okay, because you're going to be small. And then when the market turns, you're going to continue to accumulate. And now you're going to have some inventory from a good price. And then at that point, you can justify being more aggressive. Does that all make sense? Okay, so I'm actually looking to put together like an inventory plan, but I have so much stuff on my plate. It's going to take me some while. I want to do it with stocks, and I want to do it with like Bitcoin and altcoins. As the market finds its bottom, maybe over the next 6 months, what to accumulate, what has the most potential in this and that, and then what to start aggressively getting into when the market proves that it wants to be more speculative. Again, I'm going to be using interest rates to gauge that, but I would like to put together some kind of tracking portfolio to show, what makes sense and how to get into this conservatively. Not throwing all kinds of money into it at a time where things are at their lows, but it doesn't mean they can't go lower. All right, like significantly lower. So just keep that in mind. It's not about predicting, it's about accounting for. Completely not the same mindset. People just want to jump in because, this is how much lower can it go? That's usually what they say, right? If Bitcoin was at like $100, and how much lower can it go? You can go to $50. All right. So let's see. So I covered XRP. Hey, Milad, how are you? From Upper West Side. Good to see you. I got my Manhattan guy, my one guy in Manhattan. I get the whole world in here and only one guy in New York City. Unbelievable, because they're all watching Kramer over there. All right. Anyway, thanks, Milad, for joining. I remember him asking about silver not too long ago. All right. So count. I went over XRP. Let me jump over to the other one here. So hey, I'm sorry, I can't read your name. It's in another language, but. Let's see. Oh, Avi from Israel. Okay, cool. There you go. Thanks for translating that for me. I want to check on Tesla. All right, so I'm going to cover one of those. Now, I went over NEO. So how about I'll go over AMD, because I would imagine, let me just take a look at the chart real quick. I would imagine, Tesla's trying to bounce, but as we can see, it's sitting on its low. I'm going to spend more time on AMD because I haven't covered that one. And pretty much, NEO is a good sign of what's going to happen. Tesla's the leader, obviously, in that industry. So let's look at AMD, tech stock. These things are highly vulnerable to rising rates. As we can see, there's evidence here on the chart. This thing got hammered. And AMD, it's not like AMD is a garbage penny stock. AMD is a leader in its industry, okay? And look at this thing. So in fact, this is a stock that I would be interested in for like the very long term, because it is an industry leader. And it's just getting beat up right now for economic reasons, but there can be some opportunities as far as investing goes. Look at this thing; it's sitting on its lows. I have lines drawn on this chart. That's an old trade from way back. This is a support area where it's at right now. What is this? $57, $58. So this is clearly a significant support. Okay. But there's no reason to buy right now as a swing trade. Keep in mind, this is a weekly chart. Imagine people that got caught in these moves, right? Thinking, it's AMD. The market's at the bottom. I'm buying the best stock in the world here. No, you're not. Okay, because it's not about the market. It's about interest rates. And this thing is not going to do well in this type of environment. So no swing trades. No reason to be buying this thing as a swing trade, not yet. Yeah, you got a little pin bar trying to develop, but this is hardly meaningful. All right. If you're a day trader, yeah, there can be some opportunities here. But as far as swing trades go, you're fighting so much. Okay, you're fighting an environment. You're fighting lower highs. So this would be highly risky, right? If you let this close, takes out the high tomorrow, and you get a buy signal, if you get something like that, I mean, you need this thing to basically go up to here over the next few days, something like this, like test this area, which is what, 67 to like the 70 area, which is, a good 10-point move for AMD. It's possible, but a lot can go wrong, and it may never get that 10 points. It may only go like halfway and then turn, because the structure favors a lower low. Okay, it's on its low. So don't get sucked into these things. When it looks like it's a low, like, yeah, sure, that's a low. You're certainly not buying a high, but you do have to pay attention to the momentum and the structure. Okay, so if you get involved in something like this, don't have high expectations, even if the market rallies. If the S&P rallies by Wednesday or Thursday, you're going to see this thing push higher. But I doubt you're going to see this thing take out these highs anytime soon. Okay, anyway, that's your next major resistance. Even if this minor one here, this is minor, right? Because it's part of this broader structure, right? Does that make sense? It's part of this structure here, right? This bearish structure, the lower highs and lower lows. But then you have this level from back here, right? It's an old support, which is likely now to act as a new resistance. So what that does is it basically makes this entire area right here a highly vulnerable area for a new sell signal. And often, a lot of times, if the market actually makes it that far, it sucks in a lot of people. Of course, you have all these big mouths on YouTube and everywhere else telling you to buy AMD, and you're buying it right into a resistance, right? And on the short term, while AMD is not a bad stock, as you can see, the risk in this area is very high. All right, you say, but it broke out the resistance and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it can go into a consolidation. It doesn't mean that the trend has changed, especially if rates are not favorable. Okay, I can understand if rates have turned around and now the bond market's rallying and everything looks good there, but we don't have that. Okay, so until we do, any kind of bounce in this thing is questionable. All right, so keep that in mind. And the same goes for Bitcoin. So I hope that answers your question about AMD, Avi. So what I'll do is I'll go back to Tesla if I have time. I want to see if I can answer some other questions here. One question per person, please, just so I can try to answer as many questions as possible. So Avi, again, remind me again. I'd like to answer. I'd like to look more into Tesla. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, travel from Italy. Buongiorno. Buonasera. It's nighttime in Italy. All right. Thanks for joining. It's good to see you again. Hey, Peter, how are you? Todd, can you please have a look at MKR USDT? Sure. MKR USDT. Let's take a look. Oh, so this is one of these. Okay. How much is this thing? 996. All right. So sometimes you get these altcoins, right, that do something dramatic, and they're just not following Bitcoin. That happens. So this is our Maker against Tether. I guess that's what this thing's called. And look at this. So first thing you have to look at is where's the support, where's the resistance, and what's the general structure. This is a weekly chart. The general structure, I see lower highs all over the place. Okay, this is not really that bearish. Now, again, this excites a lot of people, and a lot of morons start opening their mouths about this thing's going to go to 10,000. It's the next Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. You should get the message by now, okay? This is a resistance, not a good place to be going long. That's the first thing. So probability works against longs right from the start. Now, let's go to the smaller time frame here. See, and that's one of the main reasons why I like to do this stream. I'm hoping that you're gaining that broader perspective, something that you may miss when you're trying to look at these things on your own, especially if someone else called your attention to it. Because all you're going to do is focus on this. Oh, it's strong, but it's strong. It looks safe now. No. Okay. So you have this resistance zone. As you can see, there are tails. Look at these candles. Someone is selling. So you now have an inside bar, okay, that's trying to develop right now. It's a doji situation here, but it's still an inside bar, okay, this candle right here. So this can be a continuation pattern, right? You may get if it breaks the high of the inside bar, you have a continuation pattern to go long, all right? But you're going long into a pretty notable resistance area, okay? That's where you're going long. So while that may be worth a little something, you're taking a lot of risk. So you have to be aware of that, okay? You can't think, oh, I bought something that's strong and I'm safe. You're never safe, okay? No matter what. In this game of risk, you're never safe. Now, if this inside bar low is taken out, which is what, 890, then you have a sell signal, and you have a sell signal off of a notable resistance. So that would be basically, if I was looking at this thing, I don't trade this thing, obviously, But if I was, I'd be looking for the short, in that situation. You're coming off of a resistance, and I'd be looking for the sell-off, at least back to that midpoint area, okay, which can take you back to like the 750, something like that. All right, so that's what you want to keep an eye on. Otherwise, if you're looking for another long, your best bet is to wait for that midpoint, even though it's tends to be highly random and more risky, right? If you're going to take a chance, right, that would be the better place to do it in this situation. Okay, of course, you would need a setup there and something to justify that and a way to manage your risk. But that would be it. Otherwise, the short would be more favorable from this level, especially like if Bitcoin has a major break. I mean, it may affect this thing. I don't know. I mean, look, this thing clearly has the ability to go as low as 581. It was there not too long ago. Okay, so just keep that in mind. These type of movements, they may not make sense, but there may be a chat room somewhere driving this thing. This space in particular, these altcoins are notorious for these made up herd mentalities where they get like a whole chat group people together and they start pumping this thing, they start hyping this thing, and people are gullible enough to all buy into it. And of course, the ones that were in early are going to make money on that, okay? But that's usually what a lot of times what gets these things going. There needs to be some news behind it. I don't know. I don't pay attention. I look at the levels and look at the structure. I mean, if anything, that's a good place to start. Even if this thing really wants to go somewhere, it has some time, it has a ways to go before it proves that it wants to go somewhere, okay? We saw that weekly chart. All right, it's also fighting an environment that doesn't favor it. Okay, Levant from Turkey. All right, do you think will be useful to keep an eye on? Okay, good question. Not really. I mean, I've looked at things like there's like total and total 3. Okay, these. I mean, it looks just like Bitcoin. Okay, so I mean, does it really help? You know where it can be helpful. For one, look at a weekly chart first of all. Okay, if you're going to look at this, look at a weekly chart, and I mean, it looks just like Bitcoin. And there's nothing but bearishness here. Lower high, lower high. I mean, the lower low is just likely, right? I mean, that looks pretty clear on here. Now, the way to use a chart like this is when resistances are taken out, right? That's the first step. Now, keep in mind, this resistance, some people I'm sure would argue that resistance was taken out, but barely, okay? Not only was it barely taken out, but not too long afterward, you basically gave it all back. If it takes out a resistance and then gives it all back, the resistance break doesn't count, okay? It's basically a fake out. So that's how you use a chart like that. This could give you like a nice overall signal when the entire space is starting to turn. I think this would be good for something like that. Otherwise, don't overcomplicate it. If you're looking at swing trade Bitcoin, less is more, right? Your goal as a swing trader should be to use the least amount of information possible to make a trade decision, not more information. People always think more. That's human nature. That's why everyone fails, okay? Less is more. So go by the Bitcoin chart, for smaller time frame type of activities. All right, thanks for asking. Alex, you are right. All EVs got hammered badly. Okay. Well, again, Tesla, number one. Number two, interest rates. These companies need money. Where do they get the money from? They borrow it. Okay, let me jump over to the other chat. LITM, lithium stock. Okay. Speaking of electric vehicle, right? Obviously, they depend on companies like this. So a lithium stock, Snowflake, is that correct? LITM. Okay. Snowflake Resources, they're called. All right, let's take a look at the weekly chart. So again, ugly chart, right? All I see, I mean, I haven't even looked at this for a minute yet. Lower highs, lower lows all over the place. It's the first thing I see, right? It looks kind of like Bitcoin, first of all. Second of all, it's trying, look, you have a situation here where you have a consolidation, but it's a lower high consolidation. So there's nothing bullish about this. If you're looking for bullish arguments, it's not there yet, okay? You're forming a weekly inside bar. Today is Monday, so it's got the whole week to prove that or not. But look at this on the daily chart, double top, right? Giving you, look at this pin bar sell signal. There's a sell signal in effect, right? This thing closes in just a few minutes, and not good. Okay, so there's nothing to do right now. If you're not short, no reason to chase it. I don't like shorting stocks too much, by the way. If you're going to short, you're better off using an index. Okay, but anyway, because there's a lot of gap risk with stocks, and stocks can have news that comes out of nowhere, and next thing you know, it gaps up against you 10 points. So something like this, you're either waiting for a test of low or an inside bar, some type of continuation pattern if you're trying to do something with it. Otherwise, there's nothing to do here. Okay. Perhaps you get another test of resistance somewhere, up in this area, and maybe it gives you another chance to get short. Maybe if you're interested in that. Another way to short stocks is with options. It's a great way to do it because you can control your risk very well. Okay. I'm not going to talk a lot about options here, but that's vertical spreads are a great way to do it. I hope that answers your question. Okay, freeloader, LQD. It's a corporate bonds ETF. Okay, LQD. Some of these interesting markets here I'm not familiar with. So, well, look at that. That's interesting. It looks just like the 10-year note. Oof. Yeah, that's nasty. Okay, lower high, lower low. So clearly, corporate bond rates are also going through the roof, right? So clearly, who buys corporate bonds? I guess people buy a bond to lend a company money, and the company has to pay interest on that money, right? That interest is the interest rate. So yeah, look at that. So obviously to borrow money, which shouldn't be surprising to us, it's going to cost them a lot more. There's nothing to do there. There's nothing to be long. There's no reason. If anything, is a short signal. You have an inside bar sort of over here. Not really. This new candle sort of made the lower low. What do you do here? You're going to take that breakout? That could easily turn into a squeeze, at least a temporary one. Let's just go back a bit and see, where are these levels relevant to history? Going back. Wow. Corporate bonds haven't been this high in quite some time as far as rates go. Look, you have to go all the way back to 2008. Look at that. Okay. Corporate bond rates have not been this high. Not good for companies who borrow money. All right, so not much to do there. So if you're interested in this ETF, either you're looking for a short setup of some kind, which is not there right now, you would need a rally up to this point here at least, at minimum, to give you a better probability. Otherwise, you're taking a lot of risk. This thing could squeeze in your face for whatever reason, right? If CPI comes out dovish this week, these things are going to rally. Okay, especially off these lows. So, but there's nothing to do right now. Let this thing, if it's going to rally, at least let it give you a buy setup. You're at a decent level for a rally, but don't expect much out of that rally unless rates really make a significant change. So far, those CPI numbers have been nothing but giving the Fed more reason to keep rates rising, right? So maybe we'll get a change there, but until then, accept the price for what it is. All right, thank you for asking. All right, so let me see. Count from Saxony, Germany. Okay, cool. Achtung. Okay, Romanians. All right, cool. Chris. All right, so let's see. Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Oh, cool. I appreciate that. Been binging from your old videos. Oh, wow. Someone actually watches my old videos. Usually people don't watch those. I wonder why my numbers have been going up. I'm just joking. Okay, your streams. I'm in much higher confidence entries. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. From my older streams, I may have to hide them and start charging for them. I'm joking. I'm not going to do that. Okay, hey, Alice, how are you? MPC, is it smart to trim here or still ride it? Okay, hold on. Before I get into that, let me see. I got a few more minutes. I want to do something real quick. Okay, before I get into that question, I want to talk about the euro real quick. All right, no one's asked me about it, but I want to mention something here. The other day, it was on Thursday. It was the day before NFP. Okay, I actually called the short. Okay, for people that follow in the right places, I called a short, and the short was at 98.15. Okay, this thing right now is at 97.04. The trade is up, 110 points or whatever, right? The risk was originally up here. I haven't sent out the message yet, but for those that watch me carefully in other places, I'm actually going to move the stop to there, okay, which actually reduces our risk from 180 pips to 110 pips, which means this right now is at 1-to-1 reward risk, okay, in light of that. So keep that in mind. This market closes in about an hour, I guess 5 o'clock here it closes. So this candle isn't exactly a reversal type of candle. So I'm most likely going to just let the position ride further. But the point is, keep that in mind. Lowering the stop changes the reward risk, which can justify taking something off the table if you're in that position, because now you're at 1-to-1. There's no technical reason to get out of this, but something may change between now and tomorrow, right? Tonight, this thing may reverse. So we have to see. Anyway, just want to point that out. All right. So Alice asks about MPC. MPC. All right. So his question here is it smart to trim here or still ride? Okay. Looks like, all right. So now MPC is Marathon Petroleum. Obviously, oil has been, look at this, has been generally strong. Maybe it's been benefiting from the whole, even though oil has been generally pulling back over recent weeks. I mean, this thing is just completely shrugging that off, right? Obviously, stocks have their own factors as well. So should you trim here? Look where you are. This is not a bad place to take something off the table. Now, if you want to try to give it a chance, that's also not a bad idea. The best, I think, the best suggestion I can give you is take something off the table, maybe 10 or 15% of the position, whatever, just to lock something in off these highs, because you don't know if it's going to break out or not. I mean, oil is working its way higher, right? Let me just take a look. Let's see what we were looking at oil earlier. Okay. I mean, you had this aggressive movement. This is a weekly chart. Let's go to the daily chart. Oil is in a location where there is resistance. So oil has been working its way higher, but it may pull back, and that may affect your MPC. So it's certainly not a bad place to take something off the table. Although you want to give it a chance to break out, you have that chance as well. Look at this nice higher low over here, going back just a few weeks there, right? It can easily give you another higher low over here, but it also may not. So you have to decide how much risk are you willing to take. You have a profit in it. How much of that are you willing to give back? It never hurts to take something off the table, especially you're at levels that really justify that. And there is some selling activity that's trying to develop here. Okay. So you definitely have some good reasons to take something off the table. All right. That's what I'll say there. I mean, if maybe you want to take a quarter, maybe 25% off, and then let 75% ride. Just keep in mind, this thing may go back to that halfway point. Okay. So at least you lock something in. Anyway, good question. All right, let me see. I got a few more minutes here. Hey, Just from Toronto. All right. I'm cool. I appreciate that. Any chance that you can take a look at Hive? TS. Okay. So you asked for three things. I'm going to go for the first one. Hive, HIVE. Is that a coin or something? What is that? Is that a company? Let's take a look. So here's Hive Blockchain Technologies. I'm not familiar with all these companies, but something that follows anything blockchain in the name is most likely going to follow Bitcoin. Okay. This looks just like the Bitcoin chart, especially recent price action. This is the weekly chart here. Okay. Lower high. It's going for the lower low. Look at the bearish pin bar. Okay. This sell signal on the weekly chart is in play. So a test of $2.87 is within reason over the next week or two. Keep that in mind. It can make that test the low, possibly double bottom. Okay. But you're fighting a bigger picture that's just against you everywhere, like at every angle. Bonds are against you, Bitcoin's against you, dollars against you, everything's against you. So no reason to get involved in this. As far as swing trades go, no reason. If you're looking at this as an investor, again, small bites, because right now this thing's at $3.47. There's plenty of room for better prices. Okay, so why get heavy now when this thing you can get better prices, right? Most likely. Again, you can't think in absolutes here, and I don't want to give that impression. All right, but you have to look at probabilities. That's not something you could see on the chart. Probability favors a test of lower prices. Whether you get the prices or not is another story, but that is what probability favors. You're better off going along with that. Okay. All right. Let me see what else we got here. Hey, Johnny from Sweden. Okay, cool. I don't think you get too many people from Sweden. Thoughts on silver? Yeah, I can ask about silver. So if banks go bankrupt, I know they run on silver. That I don't know. Silver always has a lot of drama. XAGUSD. Silver is always very dramatic. Okay. I mean, I've heard stories about silver going back like 10 years ago that there's no silver available. Some big bank, I forget who, has a huge silver short position and silver is going to go to 200. You'll see, hasn't reached 200 yet. Okay. So here's the thing with silver. You cannot go buy stuff like that ever. Go buy the price action because price knows everything, not people. There's a lot of drama and a lot of nonsense in metals. Okay. Gold and silver. So look, silver's recently gotten a little feisty here, right? But look how quickly it's given it back. Okay, I was warning people about this over the previous weeks. Stay away from buying silver at those highs. First of all, if you're buying silver, your best bet for long-term silver is physical, whether it's bars or coins. I don't know what you're into, but that's more of a long-term, right? You're not going to fool around with those on the short term. For the short term, you're looking at the CFD, possibly stocks, right? But more like the CFD or options or stuff like that would be more appropriate for the short term. And now look at this thing pulling back, right? Again, most likely you're just fighting the dollar. You're going into this support right here. At this moment, there's absolutely nothing to do. You have no buy signal. All you have is a potential support at around 19 and a quarter, something like that. This thing's at 1962. If banks go bankrupt, I don't see why silver would be affected by that. I mean, silver is more of like an industrial metal, and a lot of companies use silver for whatever reason. So I don't know what it has to do with banks, but go by the price action. You have that level there. If silver goes through that level, you're looking at a test of low, $17, $17.96 or whatever, $18 area. That's the area you should be looking for longs if you get a signal. Again, that would be aggressive. Why? Because you're still fighting the broader structure, right? Don't get stuck on just looking at this. People get stuck just looking at this, and they're like, oh yeah, excuse me, that's bullish, blah, 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 blah. That little section may be bullish, but this is not bullish, okay? This lower high, lower high, lower high, that's not bullish. And that momentum carries a lot of weight, right? You want to gauge silver? Focus on the dollar index. This is the dollar index. Does that look weak to you? I hope you can answer that question. Okay, so anyway, good question about silver. I hope that answers your question. All right, people have a problem with patience in this market, and they're so anxious to get into Bitcoin that they're willing to sacrifice their money. Well, this freeloader, he's answering someone else's question. The thing is with these coins in particular, you have a lot of inexperienced investors. I mean, half of these people are like millennials. They're clueless. I'm sorry. If you're a millennial, I'm sorry, but you really need to start developing like your own mind. I mean, it's amazing to me how gullible people are. I see people getting caught in these scams. I see some of these comments on YouTube. It's like, how do you not see that? Okay, you actually believe that people advertise opportunities on YouTube publicly? That's not what a real opportunity looks like. Okay, but clearly, why do rational people get sucked into these things? Because they have some sort of emotional need. Emotional whatever is much stronger than any rational decision. Okay, you're much more likely to jump into something because someone said, buy it, it's exciting, you're buying the bottom Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And it becomes hopeful. You want it, those messages of hope. It's like eating sugar. Okay, anyway. So, all right, so I'm over my time here. I got to wrap this up. So let me see if I can answer one more question. Golden low. Okay, appreciate that. What about FOMO versus profit taking? Why I have so much issues to sell while buying seems to work so often, even in bear market? Is that fear of missing out? I can't let go of my Bitcoin because I'm afraid. Okay, yeah, you do have a fear of missing out. If I count all the profit I could have taken, okay. How do I explain that? Well, look, first of all, you have to understand something. Bitcoin is not going to skyrocket, okay? Not anytime soon. And the reason, again, is there's so many factors working against it. That's why you have that fear, is because you don't recognize what's holding it back. And what's holding it back is very heavy, okay? That rising dollar is holding this back. You may say, oh, how can that be? This is a highly speculative asset. We have rising interest rates everywhere. We have a strong dollar. This thing is like gold. Okay, as you can see, gold and silver are suffering in this. This thing can't even break resistance levels. And you're worried that it's going to run away without you. So first of all, keep that perspective in mind. Second, if this thing is going to change, because at some point we'll have a more speculative market. At some point there will be easier money. And at some point these things will turn. Okay, Bitcoin, it's bearish. The bearish thing is just a cycle, just like the bullish thing is just a cycle. When these things turn, it's not going to go in a straight line. Okay, so when these things turn, and let's say Bitcoin is going to work its way to a new high at some point, right? Maybe 70K, maybe 80K, maybe 90K, right? Let's just say over the next bull run, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to get in on something like that. Plenty of risk measured opportunities, not just jumping, it's going to run by tomorrow, it's going to be at 40K, I'm going to miss it. No, this thing, it's going to take months for it to work its way up to something like that. Okay. So just keep that in mind. There'll be plenty of opportunities. Some opportunities will carry more risk than others, but there will be opportunities. So don't have that fear. Okay. And you're better off if you're playing an inventory game. You're just better off, like if you own inventory from low prices and it's at some ridiculously high prices, you're just better off taking something off the table. And as it cycles back lower, you start buying some again. You just have to have a very long view for that inventory game. All right. And when it comes time to sell, you have to take some of those profits, even though it may go higher. You may have a greed problem is what you may have. Okay. That's a very common thing. All right. Because, I could have had this. I could have, my $100,000 could have been $200,000. It could have been, but also it could have turned into 50,000 instead. All right. So greed is a serious problem that people don't recognize. All right. So I got to wrap this up now. I've been talking too long. If I keep talking, I'll talk here all day. Anyway, so if I missed your question, I apologize very much. You can ask again next week. Let me see here. Okay, not sure. Retail buying Bitcoin right now. On-chain metrics say we only have. Oh, yeah. I don't go by on-chains. I don't go by any of that stuff. Okay. No problem. All right. So guys, let me just see what I have over here. Again, I'm skipping over a bunch. I apologize. Lower high. The real. Who said that? I saw something that looked very opiniony to me. Where was that? I missed that. Do you have a bird there? A bird? No. Okay. Uh-oh, go forth. Yes. I need the women to call me handsome, not men. Okay. Anyway, let me see here. Are you okay? Just running through this real quick. Are we seeing a similar structure in weekly S&P? No, don't go by that. Don't go by that. The structure, it may be coincidence. Can't go by that. Okay. Just because it occurred in 2008 doesn't mean anything. Okay. We have other factors in play right now. After the fourth weekly lower high, let the market tell. Let the market speak. Okay, that's why I don't predict anything here. People want predictions. People want me to say Bitcoin's going to 5,000 or it's going to 50,000, and there's no way to know. Okay, I look at risk, I look at levels, I look at probabilities, and I'm always adjusting, engaging. That's what I do. All right. So whether it's for a swing trade or some other type of trade, that's it. I'm only interested in levels and probabilities. Okay, and if I'm interested in taking the risk or not. Okay. All right. Okay, guys. Yeah. So I see I missed quite a few questions here. So I apologize for that. I will be back next Monday. So please save your question for them. Or if you want to send me an email or something like that, you can do that as well. It's hard for me to answer stuff right now. I got a lot on my plate. I'm trying to make some adjustments and changes and things. So, it's hard for me to get a lot of things done. So I apologize for that as well. So, but please come back. I'm sorry I missed your question. Ask me again, and I'll be happy to answer it. The best thing to do is you come to the stream early and you put the questions in early, and then I can answer them right away. That's what some of the people here do, you see? So anyway, I'm asking because I could just be a coincidence. Yeah, okay, no problem. All right, guys. So, hey, everyone, thank you so much for taking your time with me here today. I hope you got something out of the stream. My goal is for you to come out of here with confidence and some sort of idea of what's reasonable to expect, so that can help you minimize all the other noise and all the other garbage that they're trying to put into your head. Okay. I'm trying to align you more with the market. Okay. Because the market is always right and markets are random. So you have to recognize and respect the price. Anyway. Okay, everyone. So again, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you. Thank you for watching.